Okay, I've been wanting to do this for a while. I wanted to make a video to show how I glue in knots, and I have kind of a creative way to demonstrate what's too much glue, what's not enough glue, and some different techniques that I've been using that have been successful for me. First, I want to show you. You like my overalls? I love them. Put all these different things in your pockets up here, and you know. Anyway, so I have a knot that it's not shaped right, so I'm going to use that to demonstrate. But and I made myself kind of a little blank, little socket hole, and I cleaned it out so that we can see what's going on the inside of the socket hole. It could benefit us and what we're doing. So now a lot of people have been running into issues with these glue bumps, or you know, the glue area above the base of the knot. I call them the knot pucks. That's what I call them, the base. Other people call them different things. That's fine. You know, it's just I don't know if there's an official word for it, but the glue bump above that knot sometimes is a hindrance, is a pain to deal with. A 24 millimeter knot may actually require a 28 millimeter hole sometimes if they want it sunk down deep into the socket. You know, that's 4 millimeters difference. That's crazy. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can do it, what I like to call it, a step hole. That's what I call it inside my head. You know, I'll drill the socket hole, you know, deep enough that's large enough for the base of the base, and just a little extra space for glue. And then where the glue bump is, right above that, I'll drill another hole that, you know, that'll fit it comfortably. That's one way. Another way is to, when you're turning it, is to turn the inside of the hole with, you know, tool it out and taper it. There's a couple different ways. So whatever works best for you, and whatever's easiest for you is what works. Now, another thing that I've discovered after doing this for almost 5 years is this edge on the inner part of the socket hole sometimes can be a very sharp edge. So make sure you slightly bevel that, because when you're putting the knots in, see, I like to put mine in just snug so that they kind of fit in there without falling out. But if you're moving, you know, testing the hole several times and you got a sharp edge on there, it starts cutting those hairs. And then all of a sudden you got loose hairs, you know, that are falling out for the customer. So taper it just a little bit, soften it so that it doesn't cut the fibers. Now the nylon cuts a little harder than badger hair, but the more times you put it in, take it out, put it in, the tighter the fit and the sharper that edge, the more hairs you're going to cut. So try not to do that. Alright, so let me get started. First step is to clean it up thoroughly. Alright, here we go. Alright, I'm in the bathroom now. I'm about to clean it out. I got my shaving brush, and this is the sample. I like to use Piracy soap because I have very sensitive skin. As you can see, I can break out with rashes. I get eczema on my hands, so for me, sensitive soap is the way to go. Plus, it's it's made by doctors. It's 100% natural, and it cleans really well. But I put a little soap on an old toothbrush. I'm sure most of you do the same thing, but clean it up really good and sit there and really go back and forth with your shaving brush, or with your toothbrush, to get the inside of that socket hole, get every bit of any kind of polish, oil residue, anything that's in that socket hole, get it all cleaned out. Okay. Now, for drying it, I like to use these old-fashioned, they're supposed to be lint-free, but I don't think they are, but these old-fashioned drying towels, I prefer those over bath towels. Alright, I would let that dry longer normally, but for the purposes of this demonstration, it's pretty darn dry on the inside. I made sure to get really deep down inside there with this lint-free towel. So, it's time to start gluing. Okay, my face isn't showing, but that's because I'm going to do a portion of this demonstration where I need to show you what I do. Okay, I got a vacuum hose. You're wondering, why do I have a vacuum hose? What does it have to do with gluing in a knot? I'll show you. It reduces the mess. Trust me. Okay, I turned on the vacuum cleaner and I'm going to start roughing it up. It's going to be loud. Now the vacuum cleaner is great. I just hold the hose between my legs. Kind of looks crude and rude, but it sucks up all that dust and doesn't get all over your knot because, you know, that's a pain. Alright, now you got to be real careful. You're just going to touch the edge real lightly. If you put too much pressure, this thing likes to crawl and do its own thing. You're going to angle it such that all that dust ends up right in your hose rather than all over the fibers. A little at a time, turn it. Make sure you got good control of both your rotary tool and your knot so that it doesn't get out of control. I've destroyed more than one knot doing this. Alright. Clean it up a little bit. And as you can see, let me turn this off. As you can see, it's roughed up completely on the bottom and on the edges just a little bit. You can see how it's roughed up. It's not focusing on it. Okay, there we go. It's not a professional video anyway, right? Now, as far as gluing, here's what I like to do. Of course, lay some paper down. And I love these little glossy mailers that you get in the mail. They work great for mixing up the epoxy. Epoxy brush or an acid brush. Some people call them a flux brush. Now, the key for this, they don't have to be fancy, but get rid of any excess of fibers in there. There's nothing worse than working on the inside, you know, of your brush hole, and then you get a loose hair, and then it starts dragging glue all over your brush. Alright, so now I got everything staged. I got my 2-part epoxy. This is what I like to use. 2-ton DevCon. It works great. Now, the key to a good epoxy gluing is to mix it thoroughly. I mix it for a good solid 2 or 3 minutes until it's creamy. Okay, now, but in this case I only have one brush. Most of the time I like to glue 3 or 4 at a time. You know, if you're only doing one, you're going to use maybe a nickel size. You want to have enough so that you're getting a good quantity of each, about the size of a nickel. Can't really see it because it's a black glossy surface, but that's about the size of a nickel. And I don't do it by weight, I do it by sight, and it's worked really well for me. Now, there are some tricks with gluing. If it's cold in your room, or this epoxy is not at the ideal temperature of, you know, between 70 and 80 degrees, it gets very thick, or the viscosity gets really high. So it doesn't spread out and dissipate, you know, your little pools of 2-part epoxy, so it's hard to measure the quantity exactly. So it is okay, and I do it all the time. Take a mug of water, throw it in a microwave for 20-30 seconds, hot to the touch but not scalding. Set it in there for, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute, and then just kind of move the bottle around, and that'll lower the viscosity, or yeah, make it thinner, you know, and it'll come out a little bit better. So don't throw epoxy away if you've had it in your garage in wintertime and you pull it out and go, oh my god, it's too thick, it's not working. Just go heat it up, not too much, just a little bit, and you'll be amazed at how it renews your epoxy. Now, I like the thicker rather than the smaller popsicle sticks because I have less chance of getting this junk on my fingers, and I try not to use gloves because I hate them. Alright, now I'm going to mix this up in the magic of TV. Now, I'm going to do this for about 2 minutes, but I'm not going to bore you to death. Not only am I, you know, swirling back and forth, but I'm using the nice thick popsicle stick, and I'm scraping it into a nice round pool again, and then starting over, making circles and circles, and I'm doing this for about, I would say a good minute and a half. I used to just mix it for about 15 seconds and thought that was good enough, and then I discovered that maybe it was good enough, but I've had better luck if I mix it until it's creamy white. I didn't even know that it would turn like that, but it does. It gets nice and white. So while I'm doing this, let's just talk about overalls. I got these from Roundhouse. They're seconds. Let me tell you why I love overalls. Not only are they more comfortable, and they have this nice upper pocket where you can throw a shaving brush in when you come out of your shop, but when I'm combing out, let's say I have a finished brush, everything is glued together, and I'm combing out the hairs, the fibers, with my, let me show you. I like this. I have a metal comb. Okay, it has nice wide. This is, I guess, a pet comb. Found it on Amazon. And the reason I like it is nice, rigid. Now, if I'm combing it out, I'm gonna let that sit a little bit anyway. I want to use the wide ones, especially when you have a tight badger knot where the hairs are so close. You don't want to use the fine because it pulls and snugs and starts pulling out the good hairs with the loose ones. And I like to do this because it runs through. But here's what I like to do. I like to go like crazy on it. You know, it helps shape it, but also it gets every loose fiber out. But this double pocket has an advantage there. I mean, it's like having an apron on while you're working. And if you only have a t-shirt on without these extra 2 layers of denim, I mean, that doesn't feel good on your skin. But I loved it to really rough it up. So there is a practical reason why I use overalls. Plus, they work great for, you know, coming out of the shop with a brush in your pocket. After I let it sit, I'll stir it up again. It has a working time, they say, of 30 minutes, but I've only really discovered it's about 10. It's more than 5, though. But 10 before I don't really like to work with it. Because it starts to get so thick that it's not. I don't trust that I'm gonna mess it up. All right, I'm gonna make a nice little pool again. I mean, most of you guys already know this stuff already, but you know, there might be one little nugget you can take away from it, and it's a lot creamier than I used to mix it. It's almost white, and that's helpful. All right, now again, I have my flux acid brush here, and my fully dried. I normally I'll let them dry for 3-4 hours, you know, after I wipe them completely out. But oh, whew! Drop a shaving brush. It makes you nervous. Anyway, so it's nice and clear, and the reason you'll see why I have this clear. All right, because you can actually see what's going on. I'm going to show you what to do and some things not to do. Now, the goal to getting a good adhesion is making sure that not only have you roughed up that knot, all right, you have a good surface that's clean, free of oil from your skins, and that you have a good mixed up epoxy. Okay, that's another thing. But you have a sufficient quantity, but not too much. You get too much and it starts to crawl out of the hole. It gets all over and messes up the side. It comes out, and there's nothing worse than having a brush you just spent 6 or 7 hours on, and you're like, oh my God, I got glue all over the knot. It's completely messed up. If that happens, and it's a beautiful handle, sometimes it's better to throw the knot and clean off the glue as much as you can, buff it out again, let it dry, buff it out or whatever. And use a new knot, and use that knot for something else. Use it for a deep sunk knot as a one-off or something. But so sufficient, but not too much, and that you get good coverage on the inside of this socket hole. I'll show you how to do that. I know I'm talking a lot. Now, the way that I load my brush. All right, now you see how it clings nicely to the brush, but I keep spinning the brush around like that because I don't want it to start dripping off. So I can do this indefinitely. The glue will just kind of sit there, but I keep rotating the brush while I'm working. Now, you see how it'll drip as soon as I stop? Now, I push it onto the edges. Okay, and that's it. I don't have to have all that glue in it, but you see how it's sufficiently covered on the bottom? It's pushed against that that inner corner of the bottom of the socket. It's got it's sufficient amount of glue, but I don't have it sloppy and all messy on the inside of that socket. Now, the other key. Now, I may have a little too much. In fact, if you get a little too much, take a Q-tip. This is a trial and error, but this is why I'm going to use a clear socket hole to show you what I mean. All right, a Q-tip, and again, I'm spinning it around because I don't want that to fall off on the edge of my brush. The other thing that I used to not do, but I do it now, I surface the bottom of this brush knot. After I use the Dremel, I did not clean it. I did not use any soap. I did not use any water. You do not have to. And I just put it just a little bit, not too much. I don't want it dripping off. I don't know if you can see it. Now let me show you what happens and how you get a good adhesion. If I just pop it in, it's not going to get the best adhesion. Now I like to put it in at an angle, making sure there's no glue on that edge, making sure that it's in nice and gently. Now watch what happens with the glue. Now watch it push up. If I just push it down, you're going to see the glue come up. You see that? I don't know if you can see it. It kind of pushed up. You see how it's coming up the side of your knot? That's good. You're not normally going to see that in all your brushes, only unless if you have a clear top. Now to get a good adhesion, here's the trick. Move your knot back and forth, making sure you got a good grip on it so you're not damaging the fibers. Move it back and forth. Okay, just back and forth a little bit. That pushes the bubbles out of the socket hole, so that any air pocket is basically a void space. Void spaces are there's no glue doing what it needs to do. Now let me show you the bottom. You can see that it's completely got coverage. There's no holes. This is actually from the mold here, but there's no pockets of air trapped down there. You see how the glue is not coming out of the hole, or out of the top of the brush. Now just back and forth like that, and it pushes all the bubbles out. Now let me show you what not to do. But let's say you get a little over aggressive and you keep spinning it in one direction. Now watch, it won't do it. If you keep going in one direction and you're not going back and forth slightly like that, sometimes, and now I of course I'm not going to be able to demonstrate it, if you have an excess of glue and you keep going in circle, it works like a screw effect. It's the best way to think of it. It starts climbing the glue, and you can't see it here because I have just the right amount of glue. If I had, okay, I hope that was helpful, and I hope that I didn't waste any of your time. If I did, oh well, we watch a lot of videos where it wastes our time. So but I hope that maybe you got one little nugget out of this little video. Hopefully most of you already knew how to do what I'm doing, because a lot of people are doing the same thing. So maybe you got one little nugget that'll help you that you hadn't thought of doing. Now I don't presume to know that I'm doing it the perfect method, but I know it's working for me, and I've